this is happening to you, you're not going crazy, you're waking up. Suddenly, the things you used to care about don't feel important anymore. Conversations that once energized you now drain you. You're no longer emotionally invested in drama, achievement, or being understood. It's not depression. It's not detachment. It's something far deeper and much more powerful. You've begun to feel like the observer of your life rather than the main character. And while that sensation may seem disorienting, even lonely at times, it's actually the first sign that your quantum consciousness is activating. It starts subtly. Maybe you're walking through your day and feel a strange sense of separation, as if you're watching yourself in a dream. You hear your thoughts, but they no longer sound like truth. They sound like programming. You feel emotions rise, but instead of being swept away, you watch them pass like weather. You realize your identity, your name, your history, your roles are not you but garments you've worn out of habit. And for the first time, you feel a pull to remove them. This isn't spiritual bypassing. It's not escapism. It's a shift in frequency. The beginning of a radical inner recalibration that happens when your awareness outgrows the cage of conditioning. Your consciousness, the real you, starts to detach from form. And in that detachment, something ancient and intuitive begins to stir. You don't feel like the same person anymore because you're experiencing what mystics have called awakening and what quantum physicist Amit Gawami calls the moment when you realize that consciousness is not in the body. The body is in consciousness. In that realization, reality begins to bend. You question things you once accepted without thought. You wonder whether your choices have ever really been yours. You begin to feel as though you're navigating two worlds. The one you've been conditioned to believe is real, and the one you're now starting to sense. A world built not from matter, but from mind. You might experience moments of intense synchronicity, moments where thoughts manifest faster than usual or where time feels off. These are not accidents. They're signals that your field is becoming more sensitive and more active. But here's where it gets confusing. Nothing outside you may look different yet. Your job is the same. Your relationships, your environment, your routines, they haven't shifted. And yet you have. And because the external world still reflects the old frequency, you might begin to doubt what you're feeling inside. This is the threshold, the void, the in-between where your old self is fading, but your new consciousness hasn't fully anchored. It's tempting to turn back to reattach, to pretend you didn't see through the illusion. But you can't, because once you start waking up, you can't unsee, you can't unknow. The veil doesn't reseal. This phase where nothing makes sense but everything feels aligned is sacred. It's where your quantum consciousness begins its emergence, not through books or teachings, but through direct experience. Through the undoing of who you thought you were, through the discomfort of not knowing what comes next, and the deeper peace of no longer needing to, you're beginning to realize that your mind is not here to survive reality. It's here to shape it. And that knowing changes everything. What if everything you've been taught about reality is backwards? Since childhood, you've been conditioned to believe that the world out there, solid, material, objective, is the source of your experience. That consciousness is just a byproduct of brain activity. That mind comes after matter. But what if that's not true? What if it's never been true? According to the traditional scientific model, the universe began with particles, energy, space, time, and somewhere along the way, consciousness mysteriously emerged. But this model hits a wall when it tries to explain observation, creativity, intuition, or the very act of choosing. It cannot account for the inner life, the part of you that feels, witnesses, and intends. And this is exactly where quantum physics begins to crack open the illusion. In the quantum world, nothing is fixed until it is observed. Particles don't exist as things. They exist as probabilities, as waves of potential. It's not until a conscious observer steps in that the wave collapses into a particle, into matter, into reality. This is not metaphysics, it's physics. And it breaks the materialist paradigm. At its root, this is where thinkers like Amit Gawami go further. He doesn't just say consciousness affects reality. He says consciousness is primary, that everything begins in awareness. The material world is not the cause of your mind. Your mind is the field from which the material world arises. You are not inside a body moving through space. Your body, your brain, your entire timeline is inside you, inside your field of consciousness. Let that land. This means you are not a thing observing other things, you are the field observing itself. You are the canvas and the painter, the dreamer and the dream. And when this shift happens, when you realize your consciousness is not confined to neurons or a skull, something profound begins to unfold. The rules of cause and effect soften. Time stretches, synchronicity increases, and you begin to sense that life is not happening to you, but through you. This changes how you approach everything. Decisions no longer feel like linear logic. They feel like resonance, like alignment. You don't just think anymore, you perceive, you feel into possibilities, and in doing so you begin to collapse timelines not reactively but intentionally. You become the observer that chooses, and that choice shapes the field. But here's the paradox. The more awake you become, the less your mind can grasp what's happening, because quantum consciousness isn't something the mind understands. It's something the self experiences. It's not a theory, it's a state. Frequency, a return to the original position of being, not behind your eyes, but behind existence itself. This is the awakening. And it's why as your quantum consciousness activates, the world may look the same but feel profoundly different. You see people acting out old programs, but you're no longer inside the script. You hear conversations filled with fear and ego, but your nervous system doesn't take the bait. You're unplugging, not in rebellion, but in remembrance. You're remembering that you are not the result of creation. You are the creator becoming aware of itself. This awareness isn't elitist or rare. It's natural. It's your birthright. But in a world built on distraction, it's also revolutionary. Because once you reclaim it, once you live from it, you no longer play the game of seeking. You realize you were never incomplete, never broken, only unaware of your own infinite role in the quantum dance of creation. There comes a moment in every awakening where the scaffolding of your identity starts to collapse, not because you're broken, but because the version of you that was built to survive is no longer needed. It's confusing, painful, even terrifying at times because the structures you once clung to, your name, your roles, your beliefs start to feel hollow, artificial, and for the first time you see that much of what you called you was never really you. This is not the end. This is the unraveling, and it's essential because you can't awaken quantum consciousness while clinging to a mechanical identity. The two vibrate at incompatible frequencies. One is rigid, reactive, built from programming and survival. The other is fluid, expansive, attuned to presence and infinite choice. To enter one, the other must dissolve. At first, the ego doesn't like this. It panics, it fights, it whispers old stories. You're losing control. You don't know who you are anymore. Something's wrong with you, but nothing is wrong. What's happening is that your awareness, your true self, is stepping out from behind the mask, and the mask knows its time is limited. The ego is not evil. It's just outdated. It was designed to protect you in a world that told you who to be. It gathered data from your parents, culture, religion, trauma, and built an identity that could navigate that map. But as your consciousness expands, the map no longer matches the terrain. You see through the rules, the conditioning, the manipulations, and you begin to question not just your thoughts, but the thinker itself. This is the dissolution of the programmed self, and it's sacred. You start noticing thought patterns that no longer resonate, beliefs you never chose, reactions that feel foreign. It's like walking through a house you've lived in for years and suddenly realizing none of the furniture is yours. This is why awakening often feels like grief, not because you're dying, but because the illusion is. The persona you thought was essential is fading, and in its place, space is opening. Vast, quiet space, and in that space, something deeper begins to emerge. You become the observer of your body. You feel emotions without being consumed by them. You hear thoughts without being ruled by them. You stop identifying with the voice in your head and start watching it curiously like a character in a film. And the more you observe, the more you realize, I am not this voice. I am the awareness that hears it. This is what mystics have pointed to for centuries. What quantum pioneers like Amit Gawami now echo, that you are not a bundle of thoughts and flesh. You are consciousness itself localizing in this moment through this body, but not limited to it. And the more you live from this awareness, the less the old self can hold on. It begins to lose power, not because you fight it, but because you no longer believe it. This shift isn't always dramatic. Often it's subtle. You wake up and realize you don't want to argue anymore, that chasing approval